Welcome back, everybody. In today's video, I want to talk about the difference between series and parallel wiring for guitar pickups. Let's do it. This video comes from a question that I got on one of my Friday Q&A videos. I figured rather than stick it away on one of those, I would do a standalone video because it's something that when I started out playing guitar, I was really confused about. So hopefully I can make some of you less confused. For people who already know what's going on here, hopefully you'll also learn a little bit about why series and parallel wiring actually sounds different. So before we talk about any of those specifics, let's hear it. I've got my Hamish Chaparral here, which has a Seymour Duncan parallel axis bridge pickup and a Seymour Duncan triple shot pickup ring. There are a couple of little two-way switches here which let me access series or parallel wiring on the same pickup. So let's hear that with the volume and tone controls all the way up through the same core guitar sounds. So you can hear there's some pretty big differences there. In parallel mode, basically there's a lot more high end, whereas in series mode, it's a bit louder and it's generally what we would call fatter sounding. There's less high end, there's more mid-range, and it kind of sounds a little bit more like what we associate with a classic humbucker sound. Now, let's talk about why this sounds different, because there are some, not some myths, but some misunderstandings. And most of the time, people talk about DC resistance when they talk about pickups. For example, just for the sake of this video, we'll assume that each of these two coils in this humbucker pickup have the same DC resistance. If we were to connect them in series, that would be take the hot output of one coil and connect it to the ground output of another coil, essentially just creating a big coil. We would add the two resistances. And if they're both the same, that means we're going to get double the DC resistance. However, if we connect them in parallel, we're going to have half of the DC resistance. That's because of the law governing resistances in parallel circuits. If you'd like to know more about this, I will put some links in the video description. So DC resistance between series and parallel mode on a humbucker pickup is going to be really different. But that's not the whole story, because the inductance in here, you know, we've got a coil and we've got a magnet with a magnetic field, and when we vibrate a string, we're changing that magnetic field. So we've got some inductance going on there. And what ends up happening is in a series circuit and a parallel circuit, you're going to have different resonant peaks in there. And that's really important with pickups. Essentially, that is going to make the parallel mode not only kind of sound brighter and cleaner, it's going to sound bitier because the resonant peak is going to be higher. And in series, the resonant peak is going to be lower. Like I said, I'll put some links in the video description if you want to follow up on these. But again, the kind of magnet used, the cross-sectional area of the wire used, how many winds you have on each of these is all going to play a part in there. But essentially, we've got those two different sounds to work off. In series, you have that kind of bassier, fatter sound, and in parallel, you have a brighter sound. Now, that's for a single pickup. What about if I grabbed another guitar like my Telecaster, which doesn't have humbucking pickups? There is a single coil bridge pickup and a single coil neck pickup. And a traditional Telecaster has a three-way switch where the middle position are these two pickups connected in parallel. That's one of my favorite pickup combinations of all time. It is glorious for clean sounds, but I've got a Fender four-way switch on here, which when I click all the way forward will give me these two pickups in series. So let's hear that. And now you should be expecting this kind of forward position to be fatter, chunkier. It's going to give you a little bit more kind of drive with an edge of breakup sound, whereas the parallel mode is just going to be a little bit brighter and cleaner. Let's hear it and let's see if it lives up to that hype. I personally think it's really effective on the telly just to give you that extra kick when you need it. But my favorite application of series and parallel wiring is on a PRS Custom 24 with a 5-way rotary switch. Essentially, the 5 positions will give you the bridge pickup in series wiring, your kind of traditional Les Paul style humbucker. If you click it back one though, you get the outer coils, so the coil closest to the neck and the coil closest to the bridge in parallel. That gives you like an extreme version of that kind of strat in between position, because on a strat, you know, if you go to say position 2 or position 4, you've got the middle pickup in parallel with one of the other pickups. If I go to the third position on this, I get those same coils but connected in series. So you're going to have a little bit more output. It's going to sound a little bit fatter. And then if I click one more, I have the inner coils in parallel. And finally, I have the bridge humbucker in series. So this is really clever in my opinion. It gives you a best of both worlds thing where you get, on the extreme positions, you get your kind of classic Gibson style humbuckers. The in-between positions give you that stratty thing. And the middle position, which I think is super underrated, gives you like a more idealized, usable version of the classic 2 humbuckers in parallel thing. Let's hear it. I really like these differences when I'm playing with a lot of gain, because it can really add to the percussive effect if you're kind of playing tight, riffy stuff. So that's pretty interesting, right? I think the PRS is one of the best examples that, you know, DC resistance doesn't tell you everything about a particular pickup wiring in there, because those modes all sound pretty balanced. Now, back over to the Hamer, one thing that we didn't cover was the difference between the parallel mode and a single coil mode. And you'll notice something really interesting in this example when I roll the volume control down. So let's hear parallel mode versus one of the single coil modes on the bridge pickup. Now that was a lot more subtle, but hopefully you could hear in there that as I wound the volume control down, the single coil mode kind of retained a little bit more high end in there. And again, that comes down to the fact that our potentiometers and the capacitor on the tone control and the inductance on the pickup and the DC resistance of the pickup, or I should be saying impedance, I know because people are going to point me out on that one, it's all important stuff. You can't just sum up a pickup by talking about its DC resistance. And if you would like to learn more about this, because I feel like I didn't explain any of this very well, but whatever, I will put links in the video description, and you can, you know, grab something like a triple shot relatively inexpensively, or you can add, you know, a push-pull pot to your guitar for what, like $10, $20 or something like that, and play around with some of these modes and ultimately unlock a little bit more versatility from your guitar. And, you know, in my opinion, we live in this era of amps that can do everything, modelers that can do everything, and we sometimes overlook the fact that, you know, you can shape the tone directly from your guitar, and, you know, maybe you don't need to go and buy a brand new distortion pedal. You just kind of need to learn to use the volume and tone controls on your guitar, or you could spend $10 or $20 and get a push-pull pot to unlock some different sounds on there. Or as you heard on my telly, you can grab a 4-way switch. They're relatively inexpensive. They're pretty easy to wire. If you can't do it, hopefully you've got a buddy who can do it. And you can have some fun searching for some new tones between series, parallel, and single coil wiring. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you all stay well and be good to one another. I'll see you next time.